It was a normal day on Earth. Children were heading to school. Shops were opening. The sun was rising like it always did. Nothing felt strange. Nothing warned anyone of what was about to happen. In a small mountain village, Elias Cole was fixing a broken water pump. He was a mechanic, known for solving problems with whatever tools he had. He believed that even broken things could be useful, if used the right way. That belief was about to save lives. Suddenly, the sky darkened. Not from clouds, but from something massive. People looked up and froze. A large shadow spread across the land. A ship, no, a fleet of ships, had entered Earth's atmosphere. The ships didn't roar or shake the ground. They moved silently, like ghosts. Cold. Watching. One child dropped his toy. Elias stepped out of his garage, wiping grease from his hands. When he looked up, his heart skipped a beat. The ship above was bigger than any building he had ever seen. Its surface shimmered like black glass. Strange lights flickered along its edges. He ran to the village center. Others were already gathered, whispering, pointing, panicking. "Is it war?" someone asked. "No one knows," said another. But they would know. Very soon. The first attack came within minutes. A loud pulse echoed through the air, like a deep drumbeat from the sky. Then beams of blue light rained down from the ships. Trees exploded into flames. Houses collapsed. Roads cracked open. No warning. No message. No mercy. Cities across the world were hit at the same time. The global internet collapsed. Satellites went dark. Planes fell from the sky. The armies of Earth tried to respond, but their weapons were useless. Bullets and rockets did nothing against the alien shields. Advanced jets were shot down before they could reach the enemy. In one day, humanity lost control of the skies, the seas, and the cities. Elias watched the news on a battery-powered radio. The signal kept cutting in and out, but he heard enough. Total blackout. Alien ships. Every major city. Resistance failing. His hands shook, not from fear, from something else. A thought. A question. What if we fight a different way? By nightfall, the power was gone. The village was cut off. The alien ships had moved on, but everyone knew they would be back. The people gathered in the old town hall, scared, tired, and unsure. "We can't do anything," said one man. "We don't have weapons. They'll come back and wipe us out. We should run." Elias stood up. His voice was calm, but strong. "They expected us to fight like soldiers, but we're not soldiers. We're survivors, and we don't need guns to fight back." The people looked at him, confused. He raised a broken metal pipe. "This is just junk, but give me a car battery, some wire, and a spark plug. I can make it dangerous." "You want to fight them with scrap?" Someone laughed. Elias nodded. "Exactly. Because humans don't need fancy tools. We make weapons out of what we have. That's what we've always done. That's why we've survived so long." The room fell silent. He wasn't wrong. That night, something changed in the village. The fear didn't go away, but it turned into something else. Fire. People brought whatever they had. Old machines, broken TVs, farming tools, wire, batteries, metal sheets. Elias and a few others began to work. They weren't trying to build a tank or a missile. They were building traps. Surprises. Ideas turned into action. A group of teenagers helped create spike traps from garden tools and wood. An old farmer built a launcher from plumbing pipes and rubber tubing. A teacher used chemicals from cleaning supplies to make smoke bombs that could blind alien scanners. A 10-year-old boy found a way to control a toy drone using an old phone and used it to spy on the nearby forest. Everything was useful, because everything can become a weapon in human hands. 3 days passed. The alien scouts returned. One of them landed near the village border, tall, armored, with glowing red eyes and sharp limbs. It scanned the ground, moving slowly, searching for survivors. It didn't know it was walking into a trap. The ground beneath it cracked. A hidden pressure plate triggered a chain of metal spikes, launched by a spring from an old garage door. The creature roared, not in pain, but in surprise. A flash bomb exploded beside it, blinding it. Seconds later, a flying blade, made from a fan motor and sharpened sheet metal, struck its core. The alien fell, dead. The villagers were silent, staring at the body. They had killed an alien soldier with junk. Elias stood near the edge of the field, breathing hard. He looked at the others. That was just one. More will come. We need to be ready. But the message was clear. They weren't powerless. They had just started something. News came through the radio. Other places around the world were fighting back in similar ways. Not with armies, not with nukes. With innovation. A blind man in Spain had built a sonic trap that disabled alien armor using old speakers. In Africa, a team of teenagers used solar panels to build a heat beam that melted scout drones. A mother in Brazil turned her kitchen into a weapon lab and took down 2 enemy walkers. The world had changed. It wasn't just war anymore. It was resistance, and it was spreading. Back in the village, the people worked day and night. The young learned how to solder. The old shared stories of survival from past wars. They built armor from car hoods, shields from satellite dishes, weapons from anything they could find. And they trained, not like soldiers, but like thinkers, problem solvers. Because they had realized the truth. Humans don't need perfect weapons. They just need a reason to fight. And now, they had one. One night, Elias stood alone, looking at the stars. The alien ships were still out there, quiet, watching. He knew the battle wasn't over. In fact, it hadn't even begun. But something had changed forever. The aliens had come thinking they were the most dangerous beings in the universe. But they forgot one thing. Humans can weaponize anything, even hope. And that made them unstoppable. The days following the first alien encounter were filled with chaos and uncertainty. The skies above Earth were still filled with the shadow of alien ships, their presence undeniable and terrifying. But the humans of the small village, led by Elias and his team, had discovered something incredible: the power of their own creativity. The aliens had come expecting to crush humanity with their superior technology. But what they hadn't expected was the human ability to innovate. Humans weren't the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy, but they had something far more dangerous: ingenuity. They didn't just adapt. They thrived by making use of whatever they could find. Elias stood in the village square, looking at the people who had joined the resistance. A mechanic, a teacher, a farmer, an electrician, and many others. People who had never considered themselves fighters were now united by the common goal of survival. Each of them had brought their skills to the table, and together they had started something extraordinary. The early days of resistance. It began with simple traps. In the first few days, people had created basic tools from scraps: sharpened metal spikes, explosive barrels, and tripwires. But soon, their creations became more complex, more deadly. The villagers weren't just defending their homes anymore. They were making weapons out of everyday objects, using their hands and minds to turn the tide against the aliens. One of the first major successes came when Lena, the village schoolteacher, rigged an old radio to emit a frequency that interfered with the alien drone's communication systems. With some help from the village electrician, they used discarded wires and components to turn the radio into a powerful jammer, effectively blinding the enemy's surveillance systems. The village had a modest victory when they disabled the first alien scouting drone, and the resistance began to grow in confidence. They weren't helpless. They were learning to use their environment as a weapon. Building on success. Soon, word spread to nearby towns. As the aliens continued their assault on Earth's major cities, smaller communities began to form pockets of resistance. These people weren't soldiers. They were farmers, builders, and ordinary citizens who knew nothing about fighting in a war. But they did know one thing. They had to survive. Back in Elias's village, the resistance team began building larger, more complex weapons. Elias himself, a mechanic by trade, took apart old alien technology that had been left behind after the first wave of attacks. He studied the wreckage, trying to figure out how it worked. "They're not much different from us," Elias said, sitting with Lena and Devraj, the village's retired electrician. "They just have more advanced tech. But even this tech, it's still mechanical. It has weaknesses." Devraj nodded. "We just have to find those weaknesses. Every machine breaks down, even alien machines." For the next few days, the group worked tirelessly. They scavenged for alien parts and combined them with human-made devices. They were piecing together a weapon powerful enough to take on the alien soldiers head-on, a weapon that could be used against them at their most vulnerable. The alien weapon. The breakthrough came when the villagers discovered something truly unexpected. A larger alien craft, more advanced than the smaller scouts, had crashed nearby. It was too damaged to be of any use to the aliens, but it was a treasure trove of technology for the humans. Elias and his team, led by Devraj, carefully dismantled the craft. They found energy weapons, shields, and advanced circuitry. The key, however, was in the power source. The alien technology was powered by a glowing, unstable energy core, and if it could be harnessed, it could provide enough energy to turn the tide in humanity's favor. After days of work, the team succeeded in converting the core into a pulse weapon. They used metal scrap to build a casing and attached a makeshift targeting system from an old farming tractor. The weapon was ready. They had made it from the wreckage of a single alien ship, combined with human innovation. Now they had something the aliens would never expect. The same technology that had been used against them, turned into a weapon for humanity. The first major strike. The time had come for the first real test of the humans' ingenuity. A large alien patrol was moving through a nearby forest, scanning for resistance forces. The villagers knew that if they didn't act, the aliens would discover their base and wipe them out. Elias and his team, armed with their newly created pulse weapon, set their plan in motion. They would need to use everything they had learned. Their makeshift traps, their modified weapons, and most importantly, their adaptability. Lena, with her knowledge of electronics, had hacked into the aliens' surveillance systems. She used a hacked drone to lure the patrol into a forest clearing, where the traps had been set. The aliens followed the drone, completely unaware that they were walking straight into the Resistance's ambush. At the perfect moment, Elias and the others activated the pulse weapon. The pulse shot through the air, hitting the lead alien soldier and disabling its energy shield. The rest of the patrol froze in confusion. "Now," Elias shouted. The Resistance unleashed a barrage of homemade explosives, firebombs, and mechanical traps. The aliens tried to fight back, but they were unprepared for the human creativity that awaited them. With each weapon they had crafted, the humans brought down one more alien. By the time the battle was over, the forest was littered with the remains of the alien soldiers. The humans had done the impossible. They had weaponized their world. They had fought back using everything, from broken electronics to farming tools. The turning point. This victory wasn't just about the battle. It was about something bigger. Humanity had found its strength, and that strength was not in superior weapons, but in adaptability. The aliens had underestimated humans, thinking they were weak and primitive. But what the aliens didn't understand was that humans were not afraid to improvise. As the survivors looked at the destroyed alien craft, they knew this was only the beginning. They had fought back once, but the war was far from over. The aliens had many more ships, many more soldiers, and many more weapons. But the humans had one thing the aliens would never have: the ability to turn anything into a weapon. Lena stood beside Elias, watching the destruction, and whispered, "We've only just started." Elias nodded. They think they're the only ones who know how to fight. But they don't understand. Humans can weaponize anything. The fight continues. In the days that followed, the resistance grew. More and more people joined the effort, and as they did, they brought new ideas, new inventions, and new methods of combat. They adapted alien technology. They crafted weapons from everyday objects, and they continue to show the aliens that no matter how advanced their technology was, humanity would always find a way to fight back. The village that had once been a quiet, forgotten corner of Earth had become the heart of a new rebellion. A rebellion powered not by strength, but by the ingenuity that was the true weapon of the human spirit. As the humans prepared for the next wave, they knew one thing for sure. No matter what the aliens threw at them, humanity would always find a way to turn anything into a weapon. The resistance had grown stronger. In just a few weeks, humans across the world had learned to fight back. They no longer relied on military weapons or governments. Instead, they built traps, devices, and systems from scrap. Every tool, every broken machine, every forgotten piece of metal became something useful. But the aliens were adapting too. Their scout ships became smarter, their drones more precise, their patrols larger and more aggressive. The resistance knew they had little time left. The aliens weren't going to let this rebellion grow any further. Soon, they would send something massive, something final. Elias Cole sat in his garage-turned-workshop, staring at the glowing alien power core on the table in front of him. Around him were parts from both human and alien tech, wires, circuit boards, broken weapons, batteries, and metal fragments. Beside him, Lena flipped through her notebook, filled with sketches and formulas. "This is it," she said softly. "This is our chance." Elias nodded. "We need something bigger, something they won't see coming." They weren't trying to win a battle now. They were trying to end the war. The idea. The team had collected parts from several downed alien crafts. With the help of DeVraj, the retired electrician, and a few engineers who had joined the resistance, they had studied alien energy systems in detail. One thing became clear. All alien ships were connected to a central network. A powerful signal flowed between their ships, weapons, and control centers. That signal kept everything running, from their drones to their warships. "If we can break that signal," Lena said, pointing at the diagrams, "we can shut down their entire fleet." DeVraj rubbed his chin. "And how do you plan to do that?" "With their own power," Elias answered. "We build an EMP. Not a small one, a big one. Big enough to reach the mothership." Everyone in the room fell silent. A massive electromagnetic pulse, powered by an alien energy core, could theoretically disable every alien machine within a wide radius. But it had never been done. Not at this scale. And they only had one core. If they failed, it would be over. The weapon. The team got to work. They named it Project Echo, because once it fired, the pulse would echo through the sky, cutting off the aliens from each other and leaving them blind. Using an old water tower as the base, they began constructing the EMP launcher. They mounted the core inside a reinforced chamber, surrounded by copper coils and magnetic amplifiers. Every part was either salvage or handmade. A retired car mechanic designed the ignition system using spark plugs and generator belts. Teenagers helped build the targeting array using hacked gaming consoles and a satellite dish. Lena and DeVraj worked day and night to make sure the power lines wouldn't melt when the energy was released. They used ceramic insulation from ovens, rubber gloves from homes, and even ice from the village freezer to cool the coils. Everyone had a role. Even the children collected metal and batteries. It wasn't just a weapon now. It was hope. The threat returns. Just as Project Echo was nearly complete, the warning came. A massive alien ship, 5 times larger than any before, had entered Earth's orbit. It hovered above the horizon, glowing with silent menace. Then, a transmission came through all radio frequencies. A deep, cold voice spoke. You had your chance. You chose resistance. Now, we erase you. The ship released hundreds of drones, sweeping across cities and forests. The mothership prepared to fire a massive energy beam, one that could wipe out entire regions in seconds. They had no more time. Project Echo had to be launched now. The final mission. Elias, Lena, and a small group of brave fighters carried Project Echo to the top of the tallest nearby cliff, the only place with a direct line to the mothership. They set up the tower in the middle of the night, while alien drones flew overhead. They knew it was dangerous. If they were caught, the mission would fail. But they also knew something else. If the pulse fired correctly, the war could end that night. The power core was unstable. Once activated, it would overload in 5 minutes. That meant someone had to stay behind to guide the pulse manually, to make sure it hit the mothership directly. "I'll do it," Elias said calmly. "No," Lena protested. "We need you." Elias smiled. "You'll carry the story. I'll carry the weight." The countdown. With everything in place, Elias connected the final wire. The core began to glow, pulsing faster with every second. Back at the base, Lena and the others watched from a distance, tears in their eyes, a silent goodbye. The countdown began. 5 minutes. The mothership's main cannon charged in the sky. A massive glow lit the clouds. The aliens were preparing to fire, and Earth had only moments left. Elias looked up at the sky, then down at the control pad. 4 minutes. Drones circled overhead. One spotted him. It swooped down, firing a warning shot. Elias ducked and smashed it with a shock trap built from a car battery. 3 minutes. The core's hum became louder. The metal began to shake. Elias wiped sweat from his brow. "Hold steady." 2 minutes. Alien ships closed in on the cliff. Laser blasts hit the rocks nearby. Elias grabbed a flare gun and fired into the air, a signal for the resistance to prepare for the final strike. 1 minute. Elias put his hand on the trigger. He looked at the blinking control screen. Alien symbols mixed with human code. And then, 30 seconds. He whispered to himself, "They thought we were weak. But they forgot. We build weapons out of anything." 10 seconds. He smiled. Even out of their own power. The pulse. The mountain lit up with a blinding flash. A ring of energy exploded into the sky. Silent, glowing, powerful. The pulse hit the first ship. It stalled, fell from the air. Then the next. Then the next. The mothership's cannon powered down. Every alien machine in sight began to fall. Drones crashing, walkers shutting down, weapons going dark. From the deserts to the cities, from the forests to the oceans, alien forces dropped. The pulse had worked. Project Echo had fired. And Earth had just sent the universe a message. We're not just survivors. We're creators. We're the ultimate weapon. The aftermath. The resistance ran to the cliff. The tower was broken. Sparks flew. And Elias was gone. He had stayed to fire the weapon. But he had given humanity something far greater than victory. He had given them a future. Lena stood on the cliff's edge, holding Elias's notebook. Inside were sketches, ideas, and one message on the last page. Everything can be a weapon, but the strongest weapon is a reason to fight. She looked at the sky, now clear. The alien fleet had fled. The war was not over, but Earth had won its first true battle, and they had done it not with armies, not with lasers, but with ingenuity. The day after the battle, the world was silent. It wasn't the kind of silence that comes from calm. No, it was the silence that comes after a storm. The kind of stillness that holds the memory of a war just fought. The echoes of past destruction hung in the air, but beneath it, there was something else, something new. The aliens had been driven away, their fleet shattered. The pulse that had once sounded like a distant dream had now become humanity's greatest victory. The war was not over, not fully, but humanity had taken its first great step toward regaining its place in the universe. Elias Cole's sacrifice was not forgotten. His face was now in every home, his name whispered in every corner of Earth. His final words, jotted in his notebook, had spread like wildfire. Everything can be a weapon, but the strongest weapon is a reason to fight. Humanity had fought with more than just weapons. They had fought with purpose, with heart, and with an ingenuity that no alien force could ever have imagined. The world begins to rebuild. In the village that had been at the center of the resistance, people gathered in the square. Their hands were calloused, their eyes heavy with exhaustion, but their hearts beat with something else. They had not just survived, they had won. The sun was setting, painting the sky with streaks of orange and purple. Lena stood at the center of the crowd, holding Elias's notebook in her hands. She read aloud the words that had inspired so many. We've shown them we're not just survivors. We're creators. We're builders. And we will not bow to anyone. The crowd cheered, their voices rising in unison. They had done the impossible, and now they were ready to rebuild, not just their homes, but the very idea of what it meant to be human. The sky above was free of alien ships for the first time in what felt like forever. People took tentative steps into the streets, unsure of what came next, but knowing they had changed. The world would never be the same. The message was clear. Humanity would not be forgotten. A new hope for Earth. As days passed, the news spread across the world. The alien fleet had retreated, and Earth had managed to strike a blow to their invaders. The major cities that had been destroyed began to slowly rebuild, not with the high-tech weapons the aliens had brought, but with what humanity did best: recovery, adaptation, and unity. In the makeshift factories set up in small towns, people continued to create weapons from scraps, not out of fear, but out of necessity. The alien tech they had salvaged was being studied, adapted, and repurposed. Humans weren't just fighting. They were learning. They were no longer just defenseless. They were becoming a force. Lena, now leading the remaining engineers and scientists, stood in a lab filled with alien blueprints and human sketches. The work was slow but steady. Humanity had not just learned to fight. It had learned to think. They were building new technologies with their own hands and alien knowledge. Lena's voice was steady as she spoke to the team. We can't forget what we've learned. We've weaponized everything, from a piece of scrap to alien tech. But now we need to build a future, a world where we control our own destiny. She smiled. We will not be slaves to technology. We will master it. And so they did. Over the next months, the Earth that had been ravaged by war slowly came back to life. Stronger, smarter, and more united than ever before. Humans had rebuilt their homes, their cities, and their hope. The message to the galaxy. But Earth was not the only place recovering. From every corner of the globe, people sent out messages to the stars, to the alien civilizations that had once ruled the galaxy, thinking they could take Earth without consequence. The message was simple. We are humans. We fight. We survive. And we will be ready for you next time. Earth had once been considered weak. A tiny, fragile planet with no real strength. But now, it had shown its true power. Asterisk, asterisk, the power of creativity, the power of the human spirit, and the power of unity. And the universe took notice. In distant star systems, alien leaders discussed the sudden shift in power. They knew humanity had done something they hadn't expected. They had survived. They had weaponized the most powerful thing in the universe, their minds. The legacy of Elias Cole. Elias's sacrifice was honored with a monument built in the center of the village. His face was carved into stone, his hand reaching out as if to lead humanity into the future. The people of Earth had learned something invaluable from him. They could not just survive by brute force. They could thrive by adapting, innovating, and thinking beyond the limits that were placed on them. In the years that followed, Earth became a symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope to the other star systems. The humans were no longer the underdogs. They had fought back against overwhelming odds and won. Their technology had advanced, yes, but what truly set them apart was the strength of their resolve, a strength that could never be measured by weapons alone. And in the quiet moments, as people worked together to rebuild, they remembered Elias's words. Everything can be a weapon, but the strongest weapon is a reason to fight. A new era begins. 1 year after the victory, a small group of humans stood in a newly built command center. The alien threat had been pushed back, but Earth's work wasn't done. New challenges lay ahead, from the rebuilding of cities to the exploration of the stars. Lena stood beside a large glowing map of the galaxy. Her eyes were tired, but filled with purpose. The Earth had fought back, and now it was time to reach forward, to learn, to grow, and to never forget the power they had discovered within themselves. She looked around at the group of scientists and engineers. Their work was just beginning. "We've shown the universe what we're capable of," Lena said, her voice full of resolve. "But this is just the start. Now we turn our eyes to the stars." The team nodded, their faces lighting up with hope. They weren't just survivors. They were builders, and they were ready to explore the galaxy on their own terms. Epilogue. The aliens had come thinking they could wipe out Earth without a fight. They had come thinking humans were weak, but humanity had proven them wrong. And with each passing day, Earth moved closer to becoming more than just a survivor. It was becoming a power. One by one, the stars above Earth began to shine brighter. The galaxy would remember the humans, not as victims, but as warriors. Because humanity had shown the universe that anything could be turned into a weapon, and that the strongest weapon was the will to survive. And that was something the galaxy would never forget.